Now, the thing about Lizzie is that she's a serial dater. This woman has a new boyfriend every 1 to 3 months. I'm all for women living their own lives, but oh my goodness. She would almost always call me after a breakup crying about how her ex was hurtful to her and how there were no good men in the world anymore. I was there for her. I was sympathetic. I thought that she simply got dealt a bad hand when it came to men. But I've recently come to the realization that she was the problem the whole time. Fast forward to a few weeks ago. She just got out of another relationship, and naturally she was devastated and wanted to take her mind off of things. I suggested planning a mini weekend vacation to France. It would be our first vacation together. She was overjoyed and took me up on the offer. We were able to find a cheap hotel in the very well-known city. One of my friends, Mary, 25 years old, was also able to come. So Mary, Lizzie, and I took off to France. The first day was lovely, just lovely. The weather, people, food, and transportation were top tier. Lizzie told me that she had plans for us the whole day next day, from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Great! At around 8 p.m. after dinner, I told her that we should head back so we can rest up for tomorrow. Lizzie didn't like this. She said that she really wanted to go clubbing. Okay, cool. I told her that we could go, but I'd rather not stay out too late because I'm someone who needs my 8 to 9 hours of sleep before going on an all-day outing. She was cool with this. We go to a bar and then leave to the club at 11 p.m. To spare you the details, the club was great. Mary, Lizzie, and I are big on dancing, so we were having a blast. It was about 1:30 a.m. when I told Lizzie that we should head home. She said, "No, I want to party." So I was like, "Yeah, girl, me too. But if you want me to participate in the morning activities, I need to go home." She sighed and said, "Just another hour." Another hour turned into 3 a.m., and when I asked to go home again, she started tearing up and said she needed this night out after her breakup. So we ended up staying until 6 a.m. The bouncer had to clear us out because we were the only ones on the dance floor. She told Mary and I that the bouncer was super sexist for kicking us out because technically the club closes at 6:15, not 6. She also added that the bouncer, a male, probably has nothing better to do and should be cheated on by his wife. I asked what her reasoning was behind this, and she said, "Oh, I mean, he obviously has issues if he doesn't want to see people happy. So he should be unhappy." She was dead serious, by the way. She was very upset that we were kicked out 15 minutes early. Anyway, we arrive at the hotel at 6:40, and just as we were about to go in, Lizzie says that she's hungry. I tell her that I'm heading inside and that she can eat with Mary, but again, Lizzie didn't like that. She pouted and said, "It would really mean a lot to me if you did something as small as eat with me." So, of course, I go to McDonald's with her. The line was super long. We didn't get served until around 7:20. The whole time in line, she was telling us about her exes and how they all said she was too much to handle and how that was super sexist. Because all women have emotions that men need to understand, and they always refuse to educate themselves. Haha, okay, Lizzie. We eat and arrive at the hotel at around 7:40. Lizzie says that she's setting an alarm for 9:30 a.m., so we don't miss breakfast at the hotel. I told her that I don't want to eat breakfast and I'd rather sleep in. Lizzie didn't say anything and we fell asleep. Sure enough, her alarm goes off at 9:30, and she tells Mary and I to wake up and get ready for food. I said no, I want to sleep for a little while longer as I didn't get much sleep. She turns to me and exclaims, "You're ruining this vacation. Seriously? It's just breakfast." And I say, "Yeah, it's just breakfast. I don't need to eat, and I'll eat later." Lizzie becomes quiet and leaves the hotel room for breakfast. Mary joins her. I close my eyes to go back to sleep, and they return at about 10 a.m. Lizzie is dead silent. I ask when we're going to leave the hotel to get our day started, and she says, "Well, you already ruined it, so..." At about this time, I'm pretty fed up with her. I say, "Okay," and go back to sleep. Lizzie and Mary end up sleeping till 1 p.m. and I get up a little earlier than them to get ready. They take 2 hours to get ready, so we don't end up actually leaving until around 3 p.m. The whole time, mind you, Lizzie isn't speaking to Mary or I. Mary asks me what's going on, and I just sat there like, "Girl, I don't know." We thought that it would be great to start our day thrifting and then heading to a cheap cafe for lunch. When we arrive at the thrift store, Lizzie sits on the floor and stares at her feet. I ask her what's wrong, and she replies, "It's just that you and Mary disrespected my time and the day is ruined. We have no time to do the things I planned. I'm also in a lot of pain due to my illness." I apologized and asked her what her illness was, because this is the first time I'm hearing about it. She said, "I'm just generally mentally ill, and sometimes it gets worse." I apologized again, saying, "Oh, Lizzie, I'm sorry. I didn't know you were diagnosed with something. What can I do to help?" She replied, "I'm not officially diagnosed, but I know I have OCD and multiple personality disorder. I've been going to a new therapist every other week, but I haven't found one that will give me medication. They're all old jerks that don't understand my issues and my trauma. I want to eat. I'm tired and I have a headache." I called Mary over and told her that we're going to the cafe a little earlier than planned. We reached the cafe and I purchased 2 coffees as a treat for the girlies. One for Mary and one for Lizzie. I don't drink coffee. Lizzie glared at me, saying, "You didn't even ask what I wanted. You just bought me a coffee? Seriously?" I apologized and offered to get her a tea or water, but she rolled her eyes and went to sit at a table. Mary was extremely stressed and told me that she didn't know how to help Lizzie and asked me what to do. I just looked at her and shook my head. The day goes on. Lizzie is mostly unresponsive, aside from her complaining about Mary. Now, Mary has done nothing wrong this whole trip. Admittedly, she likes to stand at attractions a little too long, but we're on vacation. And it really isn't a big deal if you want to stare at the Eiffel Tower for 30 minutes rather than just walk by it, which Lizzie wanted to do. Lizzie, whenever Mary would leave to use the restroom, would latch onto me saying, "Ugh, she's holding us back. I'm so pissed at her. Why is she taking forever? It's just a stupid insert attraction." I told her that we're on vacation and we should accommodate everyone's wishes within reason. Her response to that was pouting and going back to being quiet. The deal breaker, though, was what happened between Mary and Lizzie. Mary was trying to be very tolerant of Lizzie and her mental issues. But this is the single thing that broke it. Mary wanted to get cash out of an ATM. The ATM was about a 5-minute walk away from an attraction Lizzie wanted to see. Lizzie argued with Mary that we didn't need cash and that it would take up too much time from their trip. Yes, the 5-minute walk to the ATM was too much of a walk, LOL. Mary said something along the lines of, "Okay, but I want cash, so I'm getting cash. You can come with me. Or you can act like a baby. Not everyone will give you the princess treatment like OP." Lizzie was very unhappy with that, as you can imagine. She turned to me for help, but I shrugged and said, "I mean, it's just a 5-minute walk." This was around 6 p.m. Soon after, we headed to a restaurant for dinner. The whole time, Lizzie didn't say a word. She pointed at the menu items instead of saying what she wanted to the waiter. During the middle of the meal, Lizzie burst into tears. Mary and I tried to cheer her up by offering to buy dessert and maybe go to a spa afterwards. But Lizzie wasn't having it. She returned to being quiet while we finished our meal. On the way back to the hotel, she said, "I'm sorry, that was one of my multiple personalities. I can't control myself when that happens. You two have given me so much stress today. I couldn't help letting a personality out." Bro. She then says, "This is very triggering because my ex, Edward, male 33, from 3 years ago, didn't understand how to deal with my mental issues. And it looks like you two don't know how to deal with them either. You need to better educate yourself about mental illnesses because you don't know which one of your friends or coworkers have them." Mary and I just looked at each other with wide eyes, like, how do we respond to that? We arrive at the hotel. Lizzie and Mary are dead quiet, scrolling on their phones. I hear Lizzie sniffling every now and then, trying to hold back her tears. Both of them are texting me, talking shit about each other. I can't believe Mary said, "Who does Lizzie think she is?" For about 2 hours, I finally say, "Okay guys, so what are we doing tonight?" And both of them sigh and turn in the opposite direction of me. As you can guess, we didn't go out. At around 10 p.m., they decided to give a go, talking it out in front of me. Both of them expressed how much pressure they were feeling throughout the trip. Eventually they made up, but by then it was too late to get ready. because the bar we wanted to go to closed within an hour. On the way back home, we hop in a car from a carpooling app. The guy picked us up at a specific location and was set to drop us off at a specific location. Lizzie thought that the drop-off location was too far away from her home, so she told me to tell the driver to drop us off directly at her house. I was the one who ordered the carpool. I told her no because the driver was only supposed to drop us off at the drop-off location on the app, and if he were to drive to her house, it would be an extra 50-minute drive for them. Lizzie became quiet again, and after about an hour in the car, she texted me, "You're being a pushover. You have to stand up for yourself in situations like this. It's very unfair for him to drop us off so far away from my home. You need to speak up." To which I replied, "No, thank you." We agreed on a drop-off location, and it would be unfair to change it last minute. As you could guess, she didn't speak to me after arriving home. We had another altercation a few days later, but I think this post is too long to talk about and not too relevant. I don't know what to do. I've never met someone so difficult to be with. Ever. Where should I go from here? Should I confront her about her behavior? TLDR. My friend turned into a toddler during our first vacation together. She neglected to tell us that she has multiple mental illnesses that she doesn't take medication for, and gave my friend and I the silent treatment for over half the trip. She broke down in tears twice because things weren't going her way, and she made me be the middleman when the other person on our trip decided enough was enough and got into an argument with her. She then called me a pushover for not changing the pickup location for our carpool, which isn't even possible last minute. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. I fully believe that something is very wrong with Lizzie, but I do not think her self-diagnosis holds much water. And I'm kind of floored that she didn't decide to cut the trip short after she threw that coffee tantrum. At that point, it was painfully obvious that she was going to make the trip miserable no matter how hard either of you tried to please her. And you tried way, way too hard. You can't fix this woman with a confrontation. You've seen how she handles confrontation. You know how this will go. For whatever reason, she is incapable of seeing herself as anything but a helpless victim, and any attempts to tell her otherwise will be taken as proof that you're a bad friend who is conspiring against her. Some people just cannot be reasoned with, and she's made it clear that she would rather believe that you're a terrible person than compromise or apologize. That's where she's comfortable, and she's not going to change to save your friendship. Comment 2. Your friend definitely needs help, but my therapist once said to me that the people around me, mostly my family, don't have to put up with my problems. I cannot hold them liable for the issues I face. They try to help me themselves whenever they can, but if they can't, it's not on them. Everyone has issues in their life, but I cannot blame people for my own issues. So your friend expecting others to always accommodate her wishes is very wrong. If this friendship is taking a toll on you, then you should just tell her that you need a break from it. Even if she reacts badly, it's not on you. It doesn't seem like she'll willingly get any serious help, and you cannot force her. So don't stress yourself out because of this. You tried your best to handle her. Now, for the update. Thanks for sticking around after my last update. So, the trip with Lizzie and Mary, it went from bad to a complete train wreck. After the whole breakfast fiasco, things just spiraled. Lizzie's mood swings were like a pendulum, and Mary and I were getting whiplash trying to keep up. It's like walking on a tightrope, never knowing when you're going to fall off because of her next outburst. We tried to salvage the trip, but Lizzie's behavior was just too much. She'd flip from crying to yelling in a heartbeat. And the worst part? She started blaming me for everything. Said I wasn't supportive enough, that I didn't understand her struggles. I was trying, but nothing was ever enough. Then, out of nowhere, Lizzie's ex, Edward, shows up. Turns out, she'd been messaging him behind our backs, telling him all about our trip. He flew out, thinking they could patch things up. The guy was clueless, thinking he could swoop in and save the day. Lizzie played the victim, telling him how Mary and I were ganging up on her. It was like watching a soap opera, but we were living it. Edward tried to mediate, but it was a disaster. He took Lizzie's side, of course. Mary was furious, saying we didn't sign up for this drama. I was stuck in the middle, trying to keep the peace, but it was clear Lizzie was manipulating the situation, playing us all like a fiddle. The final straw was when Lizzie accused Mary of stealing from her. It was a lie, a complete fabrication to turn Edward against Mary. But it worked. Mary was so hurt, she packed up and left early. I should have seen it then, the way Lizzie twisted the truth to get what she wanted. But I was too caught up in the chaos to notice. Edward stayed with Lizzie, and I was left to deal with the aftermath. The tension was thick and I felt trapped. Lizzie acted like nothing happened, like she hadn't just driven a wedge between us all. And Edward, he was under her spell, thinking he was the hero in her story. The trip ended and we all went our separate ways. Mary isn't speaking to me, thinking I sided with Lizzie. And Lizzie? She's already under her next drama, probably spinning a new web of lies. I'm left wondering how I got so tangled up in this mess. I thought I was helping a friend, but now I see I was just a pawn in her game. Thanks for reading this mess of a situation. Aita for pulling away from my fiancé after he complained about my affection and started talking to his ex. Hey there, everyone. Fiancé and I have been together for 4 years, engaged for 6 months. I'll start off by admitting I'm a very affectionate person. I love cuddles and kisses, as physical touch is my love language. However, I also enjoy making my fiancé coffee and lunches and chatting with him about his day. I tell my fiancé that I love him, that he's handsome and sweet. In my opinion, this is a very normal way of showing your significant other that you care about them. In the beginning of our relationship, he loved my affection. However, a little over a year ago, I noticed my then boyfriend beginning to pull away from me. He seemed agitated by my affection and would never initiate. He also began saying things like, "Stop freaking asking me that," or "I couldn't be bothered with this right now." When I would ask him about his day, I asked him quite a few times if things were all right between us, and he insisted they were. I began to believe I was making things up in my head regarding his cold behavior. He proposed, and things improved for about a week. However, they quickly took a nosedive once again. A few months ago, after I confronted him one last time, my fiancé admitted that things were not all right. He told me that my affection aggravated him. My kisses, hugs, and cuddles make him angry. He hated when I pestered him about his day or how he slept, and he wishes I would just leave him alone. He doesn't like when I cook for him or brew his morning coffee because he is not a child, mind you. I didn't do this every day, just sometimes. He even said he was struggling to feel attracted to me because of all this. Just leave me the frick alone is what he wanted. To say this cut me deeply is putting it lightly. I felt freaking crushed, knowing that I wasn't crazy all along, that his looks of contempt when I snuggled close to him were real, broke my heart. He asked me to stop these behaviors. I spent a few weeks processing. I would sit in my car and cry alone, letting it all out before entering the house after work. Then I decided to do what he asked of me. I no longer hug or kiss my fiancé. I don't cuddle close to him at night. I don't ask about his day. I don't make his coffee or lunch. And I don't tell him I love him. Within 24 hours of this, my fiancé was repeatedly asking me what was wrong. I insisted nothing was wrong at all and continued on. In the last few weeks, I joined a new yoga studio and started leaving the house early in the morning. I also visit my mother and girlfriends more often. My fiancé has begun chasing me around and is fawning on me, giving me his credit card to buy myself gifts and initiating intimacy frequently. I have intimacy with him, but I'm not passionate. He will sometimes sadly ask, "Where's my coffee?" or "Where's my lunch?" Yesterday he told me I'm like a completely different person, and he doesn't understand why I'm being so cold to him. I told him I'm simply doing what he asked. He said, "This isn't what I meant," and started crying and asking if I was going to leave him. I told him no, not right now. Then he insisted he would go to therapy and work on his affection issues. But he doesn't want me behaving like this anymore. The thing is, I don't want to go back to the way I was. I don't feel for him the way I once did. I don't want to hug and kiss him. I don't want to make his coffee. I like focusing on myself. However, I do think he is a good person, and I would like for this relationship to work. Things were fantastic for the first 3 years of our relationship, and I don't necessarily want to throw it away. So, do I keep up my frigid behavior or do I return to my lovey-dovey self, despite that not being genuine? Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. I'm probably just old, but I wouldn't put up with this. That relationship would be dead to me. I know other comments are wondering about trauma or something happening a year ago and recommending counseling. But this is a 35-year-old man who can't use his words beyond being extremely rude to you over what? Acting like you care about him? And now it's backfired, and he still can't be more specific beyond, no, not that either. This man doesn't sound ready to be in any kind of human relationship. He's not a baby who gets to cry and scream until someone makes things just right. He's been alive for 3.5 decades and still doesn't know how to say, hey, that bothers me. Could you please do X instead? And somehow he actively resents you and treats you like it's all your fault. This man would rather hurt and blame you than use his words and say what he wants. I would not have the energy to spend time with a person like that. It's not worth it. Comment 2. Your fiancé essentially told you he didn't like you, and now he is concerned why you're acting strange. You can try counseling, but it's okay to also leave the relationship. Why trap yourself in a relationship where you can't be yourself or no longer have genuine feelings? Words have consequences, and his words have damaged your relationship irreparably. Plus, I wouldn't trust him to do another 180 again later on. Now, for the update. Hey there, everyone. Thanks for sticking around since my last post. So, it's been interesting to say the least these past 3 months. Remember how my fiancé suddenly wanted me to be all affectionate again? Well, turns out he was hiding something big. His ex-girlfriend showed up out of nowhere, and I learned they'd been talking behind my back. He claimed they were just friends, but who just chats with their ex and hides it? It made me sick to my stomach. I confronted him, and he broke down, admitting he'd been feeling guilty about how he treated me and was seeking comfort from her. Comfort? From an ex? That's rich. I felt like a fool having been so blind. But I wasn't going to let him see me crumble. I kept my cool, focusing on myself, my yoga, and my friends. But then, his ex started showing up everywhere. At the grocery store, the park, even at my favorite cafe. It was like she was stalking me, trying to push me over the edge. I couldn't take it anymore and confronted her. She had the audacity to tell me that she was just making sure I was good enough for him. Can you believe that? I told my fiancé it was her or me. He chose me, or so he said, and she disappeared. But the damage was done. I couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal. I started to question everything about us. Was any of it real? Then, as if things couldn't get any worse, I got laid off from my job. The company was downsizing, and just like that, I was out. My fiancé was supportive, or at least he tried to be, but I could tell he was stressed about money. He started working longer hours, coming home late, and we barely talked. One night, he came home with a brand new car. Said it was to make me feel better. A car? When we're worried about money? I couldn't believe his nerve. I didn't even want to drive the thing. It felt like a bribe, a way to keep me quiet and pretend everything was fine. But here's the kicker. The car was in his name only. When I asked why, he mumbled something about credit scores and better interest rates. It didn't add up. I did some digging and found out he'd taken out a loan for the car, a huge one, without even discussing it with me. It was like he was making all these big decisions without any regard for me or our future. I felt trapped in a life I didn't recognize, with a man I didn't know. I started to pull away even more, spending time with my mom and friends, trying to figure out what to do. My mom said I looked like I'd lost my spark, and she was right. I had. Then, out of the blue, my old boss called. He'd started a new company and wanted me on board. It was a lifeline, a chance to start fresh. I took the job without hesitation. It felt good to be valued again, to have something that was just mine. My fiancé was happy for me, but I could tell he was also worried. He knew things were changing, that I was slipping away from him. He started to do all the things I used to do for him, making coffee, cooking dinner, trying to cuddle, but it felt forced, like he was following a script. I appreciated his efforts, but it was too little, too late. I'd changed. I was stronger, more independent. I didn't need his affection anymore, and that scared him. He kept asking if I was going to leave, and I didn't have an answer for him. So here we are 3 months later, and I'm still with him. But it's different now. I'm different. I don't know if we'll make it, but for now, I'm taking it one day at a time, focusing on my new job and myself. I guess we'll just have to see what happens. Thanks for reading. Aita for staying with my husband after his affair, only to end up in financial ruin. I, 31 years old female, have been married to my husband, 33 years old male, for 2 years. We have a happy marriage and 1 child together. However, my husband often says that I am always sitting on his head, meaning that I am pressuring him. I never feel that I am asking things in a rushed way, and he often exaggerates what my response might be if he doesn't complete a task. For example, he'll say, "If I don't do this thing A, you'll get mad," when I have never nor would ever get mad about thing A. I'm beginning to feel like I cannot lean on him with small things without feeling like I'm throwing boulders at him. I don't want him to feel pressure, but I also want to feel like I can state my desires and needs, even if they are not urgent or immediate. As an example, I am a pumping mom and have a wearable pump. I was pumping while my son napped on me. Since he had his shots today, I didn't want to wake him to empty my milk. Keeping the pump on can be fairly uncomfortable as the milk is heavy, and the silicone pulls on the body part. It's not something I mind too much, but it is a slight discomfort. When my husband's at work and I don't want to wake my son, I just leave the pump on and readjust my chest a bit so there isn't too much friction that can cause inflammation. It still gets a bit red and sore. A few minutes ago, I said, and this is a direct quote because I always hyper-analyze anything I'm going to say to him if it is a request. Because, as I stated earlier, boulders. Hey, when you finish eating and you've washed your hands, could you help me put my pump on the counter? I asked in this way because he often doesn't wash his hands for a long time after he finishes eating. If he is watching television in our culture, people eat food like rice and curry with their hands, so washing is needed. I told him I was in no rush, but he put down his food angrily and told me to hand him the pump. His hand was not clean, and I said, "No rush, just when you're done eating." He said, "I can't eat peacefully because you're always pressuring me." I don't know how to phrase requests, so it doesn't sound like I am pressuring. I never am in a hurry to have something done, and I always feel my requests are small and reasonable. I don't make many requests because, as I said before, boulders. After typing this, I looked over. He is done eating and watching TV. I'm afraid to ask again, and I'm just letting myself be uncomfortable and have pain in my chest, instead of making him feel pressured. How can I ask my husband to do something later, but in a way where he doesn't feel like I am sitting on his head? Even if I am in no rush, my husband feels pressured. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. He's not thinking clearly. Make a marriage therapy appointment immediately because you need a professional to help him understand what his role is. Right now, he thinks you are the rolling pin touting nag, and he's a henpecked husband. In reality, he's a very misinformed husband and heading towards a very tough 5 years down the road. This behavior needs to be stopped immediately. If it's permitted to linger, it will unalive your marriage. This is all hands-on deck time. Comment 2. Your husband has decided all women nag. If he is unwilling to listen to you through any other lens, there is no magic way to escape the all women do X trap. It's a perfect tool for him to silence and shame you. You can try couples counseling, but let's be real. This man values not having to get up off the couch more than you. He likes your silence and uncomplicated. He's going to fight to keep you feeling this way. Now, for the update. Thanks for sticking around for the update. So, things have been pretty tense since I last wrote. Remember how I said my husband feels pressured by me? Well, it turns out that was just the tip of the iceberg. Last month, he came home with news that he'd been offered a promotion at work. Great, right? Except it meant relocating to a new city. He was all excited, talking about the opportunity, the raise, and the new life we could have. But I was torn. I have my job here, my friends, and our kid has just started to settle in at daycare. I didn't want to be the reason he couldn't take this chance, so I agreed. We put our house on the market, and it sold way faster than we expected. We were rushed into finding a new place, packing and saying our goodbyes. It was very eventful, and I felt like I was losing control of everything. We moved, and I tried to stay positive, but it was tough. I was job hunting, but nothing was coming up. Our kid was having trouble adjusting to the new daycare, and my husband was always at work. I felt isolated, and then one day, I got a call from an old friend. She told me she'd heard a rumor about my husband and a coworker. I didn't want to believe it, but it had ate at me. I confronted him, and he denied everything. Said it was just office gossip. I wanted to believe him, but doubt had crept in. I started to notice little things, like how he was always guarding his phone and coming home late. I felt like I was going crazy, second-guessing everything. Then, one evening, he forgot his phone at home. I knew I shouldn't, but I looked through it. And there it was. Messages to that coworker that were definitely not just friendly. I felt sick. I confronted him again, and this time, he couldn't deny it. He said it was a mistake, that he was stressed and it just happened. He begged for forgiveness. I was at a crossroads. I could leave him, but then what? I had no job. We were in a new city with no support system, and our kid was already struggling. Or I could try to work through it for the sake of our family. I chose to stay and work on our marriage. I told myself it was the right thing to do. But that's when things took an even crazier turn. My husband's company was hit with a lawsuit. Turns out the promotion he got was part of some shady business practices. And now we were caught in the middle of it. Lawyers, court dates, the whole mess. Our savings started to drain with legal fees, and the stress was unbearable. Amidst all this chaos, I finally got a job offer. It wasn't ideal, but it was something. I took it, thinking it would help us get back on our feet. But on my first day, I found out I was working with the same woman my husband had the affair with. She didn't know who I was, but every day I had to see her face. And it was torture. I kept it all to myself, not wanting to add to my husband's stress. But inside, I was breaking. I felt like I had made the wrong choice at every turn. And now I was stuck in a life I didn't recognize. And just when I thought it couldn't get worse, my husband came home one day with the news that he'd been fired because of the lawsuit. We were now facing financial ruin on top of everything else. So here we are, trying to pick up the pieces of our shattered life. I'm working a job I hate, we're drowning in debt, and I'm still not sure if I can ever trust my husband again. I thought I was doing the right thing, but now I'm not so sure. Thanks for reading. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.